Okay, so we are going to go over your 6A test review. Your test is going to be tomorrow, which is Wednesday. Okay, so a few things I want to go over before we get started. Total surface area is when you find the area of all shapes, including the bases. Lateral surface area is when you take the area of all shapes, but you do not include the bases. So that is very important that you know which one is which. Okay, so total is when you include your bases in your calculations, and lateral is when you do not include the bases. That is the difference. Now you need to know your bases. Your bases are the ones that stick out, okay, the shapes that stick out when you're given a net, or the ones that are parallel, meaning they do not touch if the shape was closed, okay, they would not touch. So you definitely need to know which ones are your bases, so that way you'll be able to calculate the lateral surface area. A couple more things. You'll only need to know the area of 3 shapes, okay? So the rectangle, the area is base times height, and also your square will be base times height. So they will both use the same formula. The triangle is the only one that will have a different one. That will be base times height and then divided by 2. Okay, so that is the difference between those. All right, so let's get started. Number 1 says that the net of a square pyramid is shown in the diagram. What is the total surface area of the square pyramid in square inches? It says record your answer and fill in the bubbles on your answer document. Be sure to use the correct place value. So we don't have a grid on this review, but just make sure you know how you would do that if you were given a grid, how you would put your answer in and bubble it in. Okay, so they want us to find the total surface area. Okay, so total is when you get the area of all your shapes that are included, including the bases. Okay, so you're pretty much going to get your area of all these shapes and include your base. Okay, for this shape, this would be the base. All right, they said that this is a square pyramid. Okay, so that means that the square is the base. So that means that all my sides of the square must be the same. And I know you can't necessarily see it on this, but that says 8 inches. And so I'm just going to label that all these sides are 8 inches because this is a square pyramid. Okay, that's how I know that all of them are 8. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is you want to name the shapes that you see or that you have. Okay, I have 4 triangles. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Plus I have 1 square. Okay, I'm just going to put SQ for square. Okay, once I name the shapes that I have and how many, I'm going to then write down the formula for the surface area. Okay, so you would say, okay, I have a triangle. The formula for a triangle, remember, is base times height divided by 2. And since you have 4 of the same triangles, the same size, you can then multiply that by 4. So I'm going to put this in parentheses and then put a 4 out here to say that I can multiply by 4. Then you want to definitely put a plus, okay, because surface area means that you're adding the areas of all your shapes. Then you say, okay, what is the formula for a square? Remember, the square has the same formula as a rectangle, which is base times height. And I only have 1 of those, so I would just be multiplying by 1. Okay, that would be the formula. Once you do that, all you're going to do is plug in your numbers. So you're looking at the triangle. All right, so the base for your triangle, okay, the bottom of the triangle is 8. So I'm going to put an 8 where the B is, times the height of the triangle, okay, is always basically the straight line that's going to be inside of your triangle, okay, never the slanted side. Always the one that's inside the triangle is the height, straight up. And so that is going to be 9. Okay, divided by 2, because that's the formula for the area of a triangle. Okay, put your 4 back. Plus, you have your 1. Okay, the base of your square, well, one side is 8, so I'm going to put an 8 where the B is, times the height. The height is also 8. Okay, so you plug in your numbers and then you just keep on solving. All right, so the order of operations says that parentheses comes first. So you remember PEMDAS, the P stands for parentheses. So we have to solve what's in here first before we do anything else. When you're given something to where there's a top and a bottom, you always take care of the top first. So 8 times 9 is 72. Okay, you have your divided by 2. Put it back in parentheses. Put that number back. Plus, you have your 1. Then take care of these parentheses. 8 times 8 is 64. Okay. Then you just keep on solving. So I'm going to keep on writing through here, but we're still on number 1. Okay, so I'm still taking care of these parentheses. So 72 divided by 2, because that's what that line means, equals 36. Okay, put it back in parentheses, put your 4. Plus, you got your 1 times 64, which is 64. Keep on solving. 4 times 36 is 144 plus 64. Okay, then all you have to do is just add 144 plus 64. Your answer will be 208 inches squared. Okay. So I'm going to box that. Okay, so this was my total surface area. I'm just going to put SA for surface area. Now, that is the answer because that's what they were asking for is the total surface area. So it'd be 208. Okay, so I'm just going to rewrite that right here. I'm just going to write TSA for total surface area is 208 inches squared. That is the answer. Okay, if I had to put it inside of a grid, just know that with a whole number, the decimal is always at the end. So when you don't have a decimal, always put it at the end. Okay. All right. Now, if I was looking for the lateral surface area, for example, then I would not include the bases. And so the base for a pyramid, okay, for this square pyramid would be the square. So I would just subtract out what I have for the square. So if I wanted the lateral surface area, it would be just the 4 triangles that I would want because I wouldn't want the square because that's the base. So let me just write this down so that way you understand. The square would be the base. And so for lateral, I just wouldn't want the square because that's the base. So the lateral surface area, if they were asking for it, would be 144. Okay. Just in case. But since they were asking for total, this is the one that you would want, which is the 4 triangles plus the base. Number 2, Mr. Benson is making a jewelry box using 2 identical square pieces of wood and 4 identical rectangular pieces of wood as shown below. What is the surface area of the jewelry box? Okay, so what I'm going to do is just part this off so that way we know that this is all number 1. Okay, I'll work number 2 down here. All right, so they want to know the total surface area. The reason why I know they're asking for total is because when they say just surface area, they're referring to total surface area. If they want lateral surface area, they will put the word lateral, okay, in front of there. Otherwise, you always assume that when you see this by itself, they're talking about the total surface area. Okay, so I'm just going to write that down. Okay, so surface area, aka total surface area. Okay, so that means they want all the shapes, including the bases. Okay, just so you know, these are the bases because they stick out. Okay, so if you imagine yourself walking on a sidewalk, whatever sticks out is the basis. So these 2 would be the basis. Since they want the total, I'm going to take all of it. Okay, so You then name the shapes that you have. You have 4 rectangles, okay? They said that they were identical, so we can group them together. All right, so we have 4 rectangles that are the same. They're all going to use the same numbers. Plus, you have 2 squares. Okay, so you just name what you got. Once you do that, you're going to write down your formula. So you say the formula for a rectangle is base times height. You have 4 of those, so multiply by 4. Plus, the formula for a square is the same as a rectangle, so base times height. You have 2 of those squares, so multiply by 2. Okay. Now you're going to plug in what you have. So we have the 4. Let's find the base of the rectangle. Well, the base would be 7 times the height of the rectangle, which would be 3. Plus you have your 2. Now the base of the square would be 3 times the height of the square, which would be also 3. Okay, then you just keep solving, parentheses first, so do 7 times 3. Do not do 4 times 7. You must take care of parentheses first. So take care of what's inside. 7 times 3 is 21. Put it back in parentheses and put your 4 out there. Plus, you have your 2. Take care of parentheses first. So you have 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay, then you keep going. 4 times 21 is 84. Plus 2 times 9, which is 18. And so all you have to do for your total surface area is add these two together. You will get 102 inches squared. Okay? And that is your total surface area. Why? Because I included the bases, which were the squares. Okay, so that's what they were looking for, so I have 102. Now, if they were looking for the lateral, I would take out the bases, so I would then do 102 minus the squares, which is 18. So just in case they were asking for that, I would do 102 minus 18, and I would get the 84 that I had for the rectangles in the first place, and that would have been my lateral. Okay, which is the same as that. Okay. Okay, so number 3 says if one face of a cube has an area of 5.25 square inches, what is the surface area of the entire cube? Okay, so look at what the question wants. It wants the surface area. Remember, whenever they say just surface area, they're also just talking about total surface area, because if they want lateral, they will say so. All right, so you have the area. Okay, so one face of the cube has an area of 5.25 square inches. Remember, with surface area, all you're doing is adding all the areas together. Okay, so if you have one that has an area of 5.25 inches, then you just got to find out, okay, how many would be inside of a cube altogether, because you want the total surface area. Okay, so the total surface area of a cube, you should know, has 6 faces. Okay, 6 faces for the total surface area. If it was lateral, it would be just 4, because I would take out 2 of those, the 2 that would stick out. Okay, but they want the total, so I'm just going to take the area for one, which is 5.25, and multiply that by, I would have 6 faces, so multiply by 6, you will get 3150. Okay, inches squared, which is the same as square inches. So the answer would be 31.5, okay, because a 0 doesn't necessarily matter if it's at the end. Number 4 says the net of a square pyramid is shown below. What is the total surface area of the square pyramid in square inches? I'm sorry, square meters. So look at what they want. They want the total surface area, so all shapes, including the bases. So then you say, okay, what shapes do I have? I'm going to name them. I have 4 triangles. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I have 1, they said this is a square pyramid, so that's a square. So 1 square. Okay, and I'm just going to add those together to get my answer. So then you say the formula for a triangle is base times height divided by 2. I have 4 of the same triangles, so I would multiply that by 4. Plus, you have 1 square. The square has the same formula as a rectangle, so it's just going to be base times height. Okay, then you're just going to fill in your numbers. So you have a 4. Now you got to find what the base is of the triangle. So the base of the triangle, well, if this is 18 and this is a square, that means all of these are 18 meters. So that can help you see the base better. So the base of the triangle is 18 times the height of the triangle. Well, you have this measurement here in the middle, and you also have a height for this on the side. You have to know which one is the actual height. The height is always the one in the middle that stands straight up. Okay, never take the slanted one. So this here is there for no reason. That's a slant. You always want the straight line in the middle. Usually it will be dotted, but whatever's in the middle, that is the height that you are to use. So the height of the triangle is not 15. It is going to be 12. So just make sure you know which one's the actual height, because one of them is there to confuse you. Okay, divided by 2, because that's the formula for a triangle. Plus, you have your 1, your base of your square is 18, times the height of your square, which is also 18. Once you do that, you're just going to solve. Remember, parentheses first. If you have a top and a bottom, take care of the top first. So 18 times 12 will give you 216 divided by 2, plus you have your 1. Now take care of parentheses. 18 times 18 would give you 324. Okay. Now still taking care of parentheses first. You got to do 216 divided by 2. That's going to give you 108. Plus 1 times 324 is going to be 324. Okay, you still got to take care of this. 4 times 108 is going to give you 432. Plus, you got your 324. And that's going to give you a final answer of 756 meters squared. Okay, that is your total surface area. Why is it the total? Because I included the base in my calculation. Okay, so the answer is going to be B, because they were asking for the total. Now, if they were asking for lateral, you will not include the base. So basically, you would just take away the base, which is the square, the one in the middle. So it'd be 756 minus 324. That should give you just your triangles, which is 432. So this would be your lateral if that's what you were looking for. Okay, so just in case, that is how you find your lateral, is to take away the base. So your base would have been your square. Okay, but they want it total, so you have to include both. All right. Okay, Number 5 says, Miss Nurse wants to paint a model of her living room walls in her home. What is the difference between the total and lateral surface area of the model? Okay, now you got to pay attention to this because this is not a normal one where they just want the total or just the lateral. They want to know the difference. Okay, difference, the word difference in math means you will need to subtract, okay, at some point. Okay, they want to know the difference between the total and the lateral. Okay, so that means I need to find the total first and then the lateral, and then I would subtract for my answer. Okay, so the main thing you want to start with is just naming what you see. Okay, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 rectangles. Plus you have 2 squares. These are squares because this side is the same as this side. That's how I know that those are squares and not rectangles. Okay, so then you write down your formula. The formula for a rectangle is base times height. You have 4 of those, and so you would multiply by 4. Plus square has the same formula as a rectangle, so base times height. You have 2 of those squares, and so you would multiply by 2. Okay, now filling what you have your 4. The base of your rectangle would be, okay, it would be 2 because these 2 are congruent. Remember, opposite sides are congruent. When I put a line there, that means those 2 are the same if they both have the same amount of tick marks. So the base would be 2, and the height of that very same rectangle would be 4. Okay, plus you got your 2. Now you want to do your square. So the square, the base is 2 times the height, which is also 2. Okay, then you would just solve, do parentheses first. So 2 times 4 must come first before I work with this 4. So 2 times 4 is 8. Plus, got your 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, just keep on solving. 4 times 8 is 32. Plus 2 times 4, which is 8. Okay, so 32 plus 8 gives me 40. Okay, so 40 is my total surface area. Okay, my lateral, well, you got to figure out your bases. Your bases are whatever sticks out. So imagine this is the sidewalk. Your 2 squares are the bases. Okay, you definitely got to figure out which ones are definitely the bases so you can subtract the right number. Okay, so your 2 squares are your bases because they stick out from the others. And so I would just take away 8 to get my lateral. If I do that, basically I will get this, which is my lateral surface area. Okay, everything but my bases. They want to know the difference between the 2 and to get your answer. So it's going to be 40, which is my total, minus my lateral, which is 32. And the difference between my total and my lateral is 8 feet squared. Okay. Number 6 says Christopher is cutting pieces of wood to make a triangular pyramid like the one shown below. The base of the pyramid is an equilateral triangle and the faces are isosceles triangles. What is the total surface area of the pyramid that will be made from the pieces of wood in square inches? Okay, so just name what you got. Now, you cannot put all 4 triangles together even though you do have 4 triangles. Whatever is different has to be in its own group. Okay, whatever has different measurements has to have its own group. So you got to figure out which ones are the same. Well, these 3 would be the same. Okay, they would have the same numbers for base and height. Okay, so I have 3 triangles that are the same. plus this one will be different, okay, because it has the same base, but it has a different number for the height. So this one has to go in its own spot. Make sure you know that. Okay, so if it's different, it has to be separate because it doesn't have the same measurements. Then you say the formula for a triangle is base times height divided by 2. You have 3 of those plus 1 triangle, so base times height divided by 2. Plug in your numbers, so you have 3. The base of one of your 3 triangles that are the same, okay, is 4.5 times the height. Remember, the height is in the middle, straight. That would be 3.5 divided by 2 because it's a triangle. Plus, you got your 1. Do your base of your center triangle, which has different measurements. So 4.5 would be the base times the height. This one has a height of 3.9. So that's why it's separate, because it has its own measurements divided by 2. Okay. Take care of your inside first. The top, which would be 4.5 times 3.5, will give you 15.75 divided by 2. Plus, you got your 1. 4.5 times 3.9 will give you 17.55 divided by 2. Okay, you would keep going. So you have your 3. You got to take care of this first. So 15.75 divided by 2 would get you 7.875 plus, you got your 1, and then 17.55 divided by 2 will give you 8.775. So then you would do 3 times 7.875 will give you 23.625 plus, you got your 8.775. Okay, and so that'll give you a final answer for your total surface area of 32.400 inches squared. Okay, and that will be your total surface area. So 32.400 is the same as 32.4. If they wanted your lateral, then you would just take away the base, which is that center one. So you would take away the 8.75, that one triangle, and your lateral would have been 23.625. Okay, but since you wanted the total, you take all of it and get your answer. Okay, number 7 says that Callie wants to use the net below to create a 3-dimensional design for art class. Solve for the lateral surface area for the figure shaped like a triangular prism. Okay, so got to figure out what they want. They want the lateral this time, so this means do not include the bases. Okay, so you got to know which one the bases are. All right, with a triangular prism, you need to know that the bases are the 2 triangles, all the time. Okay, so for a triangular prism, the bases are always the 2 triangles. All right, so we just don't want the triangles. That means we're just going to do these 2 rectangles and then this shape here, which should be a square. Okay, so you're not going to do the 2 triangles because those are your bases and you want the lateral. All right, so we got 2 rectangles. We definitely want those. Plus we want the 1 square. Okay, do not do the triangles because you want lateral. So the formula for a rectangle is base times height. You have 2 of those, and so you're going to multiply by 2. Plus the formula for a square is the same as a rectangle, so base times height, and you have 1 of those. Plug in your numbers. The base of the rectangle is 2. So I'm putting a 2 where the B is, times the height of the rectangle is 7. Okay. Plus, you got your 1, the base of the square, the base of the square. Well, if you close this, okay, you have to imagine yourself closing this side has to meet with this side. They both have to be the same distance. Or you can say, well, this is 2, and so the opposite side must also be 2. Okay, so that is also 2 times the height. Remember, these two have to close so they're congruent to each other, this and this. So that's also 2. Okay, and so keep solving, parentheses first, 2 times 7 is 14. Plus you have your 1, and then 2 times 2 is 4. Keep solving, you have 28, that's 2 times 14, plus 1 times 4 is 4. And so if you add them together, you will get 32. And that'll be centimeters squared. Okay, so that is already your lateral because you just did not already include the bases. You already took out the bases. Okay, so number 8, if one face of a cube has an area of 7.5 square inches, what is the lateral surface area of the cube? Okay, so you want the lateral this time of the cube. The area of one face is 7.5. Okay, so lateral surface area of a cube, okay, this lateral only, would have 4 faces because you would take out your 2 bases. All right, so you would just do what you have. You have the area of 1, so take that, multiply it by 4, because lateral will be 4 faces instead of 6, and you will get 30 inches squared. And that is for your lateral. Okay. All right, there's one more thing I want to go over before I am finished with this. If you have a shape like this, okay, first of all, this would be the net of a rectangular prism. All right, so if you have a shape like this and you have to solve it, okay, the main thing is that you know which sides are the same, okay, and which rectangles are the same. All right, so just so you know, if we were to close this, these two would be the same. Okay, so I'm just going to give those give them the same symbol. I'm going to give these two the same symbol because those would be the same. And I'm going to give these two the same symbol because those would be the same. Okay, I have the base and the height of this one already. If I want the base of this, well, this must be the same. This distance must be the same as this one. So